Joining me now is the owner-operator of Esca to talk a little bit more about the effects of COVID-19 on the restaurant business and the province's reopening. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks, Gabe. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's start at the very beginning. In March, the province issued its public health orders and restaurants were forced to shut down. So let's talk about what was going through your mind at that point.
Sure. Um, you know, Worry and concern, and I let a few f-bombs loose. I'm sure more than usual. Um, yeah, it was just a time of uncertainty, I think, for everyone, and we were no exception. Uh, we had no idea how long this thing was going to last. I think I'm glad that we weren't aware that it was going to last for 3 months, because that would have just added extra stress to the thing. Having said that, we're very glad that it didn't go beyond 3 months. Obviously, things aren't back to normal, but to be open partially is a huge relief for all of us.
Absolutely, and it can't be understated just the importance of a restaurant, especially when it's family owned, such as this. Like this is your livelihood, and this is something that you and your partners have worked and staff have worked so hard for over the last couple of years to build into a successful business.
Yeah, I mean, it's things were rolling along really nicely when things were shut down, so that was sort of disappointing. Uh, but at the same time, I think we felt really, really fortunate, even at the beginning when we closed, that we'd get back on our feet for those same reasons that we were rolling along. We got a great staff, we got a great customer base, and yeah, like I said before, we're very, very happy to be back at least in a partial capacity.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the reopening process. So right now, there's two options. For the first time, I believe people are able to order for takeout, and as well, the patio, which was already a success before,
Yeah.
has been expanded a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a lot at once, but in the best sort of way. Um, in our business, I think like a lot of businesses, it's better to be busy, and it's a lot more fun to be at work when things are really busy. So that's been good to keep us occupied with the increase in takeout, which, as you'd imagine, it's probably tripled or quadrupled compared to what it was before. And on the patio, it's just everyone's so happy to be out there, our staff included, but our customer base are just sort of over the moon to be out of the house finally. And we're very glad to have the extra tables outside the patio and on below our windows on Pitt Street.
Absolutely, and you talk about that customer response. Let's elaborate a little bit about that more and just the response that you've gotten from the community so far.
Well, we can't really say enough. We're very proud of the staff that work in our restaurant. They're like family to us. And one thing that makes their jobs a lot easier is the fact that our customer base are fantastic. They're loyal, they're respectful, they're kind and funny people, for the most part. So we couldn't be happier with our returning customers and our new customers alike.
And we know that a lot of these things are common sense and directed by the health unit in terms of public health orders. But I always like to ask as well is for a customer coming to dine on the patio, what can they do to make sure that they to make the job easier for the staff and to make sure that their visit is as safe as possible?
Well, I think people are aware. I mean, everyone had a lot of time to sort of focus on the best practices for um, staying healthy, I guess is the easiest way of putting it. Our specific restrictions are that our customers need to use face masks when they come in the building to use the restroom, and all of our staff who work inside the building have to wear face masks, and our staff have to wear face masks on the patio. Um, and other than that, I guess just sanitizing. We've got hand sanitizer at numerous different sort of stations in and around the patio and indoors. And we just operate under the assumption, and I think it's a fair assumption, that people are taking care of themselves, but also with an eye towards making sure that the people around them are safe and healthy as well.
And Mike, of course, we alluded to the success that Esca has had, but we know that our downtown as a whole has really grown over the last couple of years and had entered a little bit of a renaissance before all this took place. So I like to ask as well, where do we see the downtown coming out of this? We know that some businesses have struggled, many were able to pivot, so there's no crystal ball, but what are your thoughts on how the downtown will come out of this crisis?
I'm hopeful about how the downtown will come out of it. I mean, I have to be hopeful. That's the only way to look at it. I know that 3 months of being closed and sort of carrying on in this pre-stage 3 time is tough on businesses, and it's tough on some more than it is others. I know that we benefited from the fact, well, actually this week is our 5-year anniversary. We've been in business long enough that we know some of the tricks to, I guess, keep our head above water. So it'll be difficult for businesses that are maybe new, but I also have faith because I know that anyone with the wherewithal to open a small business in the downtown of a small town, there are built-in skills there that mean that you can sort of think on your feet when something unforeseen happens. And I think that's sort of going to be necessary for many of our downtown businesses, and I have faith that they're up to the challenge.
And when you speak about difficulties on businesses, we know that there's a lot of strain on families as well. And we have to mention, of course, a big congratulations to yourself. You have a brand new member of your family, and they can only be described as probably a unique situation to have a child in this current situation.
It is, yeah. They pretty early on they dubbed these COVID babies or quarantine kids, whatever you want to call them. It's I know that my wife's been a champ throughout in terms of keeping the positive perspective, but I know it's added stress to new mothers and expecting mothers. But we looked on the bright side in this area as well, and we were able to see it as time together in the final 3 months of her pregnancy. And so he's 3 weeks old today. I got my Papa Bear mug. Isn't that lovely? And he's doing really well, so we couldn't be happier.
That is so great to hear. And just finally, of course, we all know you as Mike from Esca, but you're also Mike from the Questionable Comedians. And we had Dan Allaire on a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him the same question. Obviously, these are heavy times, but a sense of humor is always a great asset to have. And I'm sure that you have an interesting story or an interesting perspective from a comedian standpoint on all of this COVID-19 crisis.
Well, one thing that I noticed was that, and it's appropriate right now being on a Zoom call, that people have adopted a certain Zoom etiquette. And I just wonder if it'll transfer over into real life. Like I've been on that's how I've communicated with friends and family throughout the pandemic. And I noticed that people take liberties on Zoom that they wouldn't do in other conversations. For example, standing up and leaving the frame. So if you and I were talking out in public, for example, one of us would feel uncomfortable if the other one just sort of went like this and then disappeared for like a few minutes. But I find that my family and friends are all too willing to do that, which I hope becomes a part of everyday conversation, because it's just mixing it up a little bit,
Absolutely, it would only make things more interesting. On that note, Mike, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your perspective and your experiences, and very happy that Esca is back up and running alongside so many great downtown businesses, and we can't talk enough about the importance of supporting these businesses and shopping local.
Thanks for having me, Gabe. Really appreciate it.